I'm Wendy Martyna, and I teach social psychology in the sociology department, although I've also taught in the psychology department for many years. Well, I love to teach a wide range of courses. So I've been privileged in the sociology department to have the chance to teach 9 or 10 different courses over the last few years. And so part of my philosophy is to be a generalist, to be someone who integrates interdisciplinary perspectives on what I teach. So it's not just about that particular subject matter, but it's also about how that subject matter relates to the rest of the world. I began here as an assistant professor of psychology, but I left the tenure track about 5 years in because I wanted to do a wide variety of teaching in a wide variety of places and forms. But I have found a steady home in sociology over the last so many years now, late 90s, and with some courses in psychology as well, focusing on gender studies, and language studies, language and social interaction, social psychology, the general intro to the field. Death and Dying has been my signature class since I started teaching it in 1979. And it's about how our attitudes, our perspectives on death and dying really affect our everyday life. It's really a class about life and living. Also, I teach family and society, sociology of emotions, sociology of men, as well as sociology of women and gender studies, and a new course I've been teaching this quarter that I'm really enjoying on social justice, which is about how we can achieve a socially just world. I read all my students' papers, which is why it takes, I'm sure I owe many students papers still at the end of the quarter from the start of the quarter. From the start of the year, because my classes have gotten larger and larger. That's part of the state of the art at UCSC. But even when I'm teaching 100, 140 people, I still am committed to reading every paper and commenting on it. And to the best of the time that's allotted me, to the best of my ability, in the time that's allotted me, I should say, to give it a line-by-line edit so that people have a sense that language matters, that writing matters, and to make more beautiful and coherent writers of them. When I reach the point where I stop reading student papers, then I think it's time that I stop teaching as well. I like to oftentimes assign a basic text, but then assign supplementary materials that bring the text alive in a way that a textbook cannot always achieve, since it's trying to cover theory and the basics. I also use young adult fiction in my classes, in almost every class. I've been taught a great deal about how to do that, not only from other sociologists that also use fiction in classes, but also from Gay Lombard, who for over 35 years has run the young adult and children's section at Bookshop Santa Cruz, our local community resource, without which all of us would be impoverished, I think, in so many ways. So she will suggest books to me that have particular relationship to my family and society class, or my death and dying, or my gender classes, and I'll choose some that I think lift the theory into life and allow the students to engage very directly with the stories of young adults or children, and to investigate in what way the stories bring the theory alive. What happens is that many students then discover that they learn to love reading again, ironically, and start to read more adult books. One of the ways that I create engaging, what the students think are engaging writing assignments, is to take the learning outside of the classroom into, not what, I never call it the real world, because I consider it to be the real world inside my classroom too, but outside into the extended tendrils of their lives. So talk about history of the family in terms of interviewing an ancestor of yours. Talk about the multiculturalism in family and society that we see by doing an oral history or an interview with a family member, and develop the questions and send me a prospectus first that identifies the questions you're going to ask, and then do that interview and write what you learned. That's one that's very valuable and engaging. I also, with the young adult literature that I require, I give the option of having the student write in the voice of the person in the book. And imagine that this person, let's say it's a young adult book about a child that's been lost in the foster care system, bounced from home to home to home to home. Imagine that that child ends up taking Family and Society years later, and write in the voice of that person what they're learning from this class. And that's a very imaginative assignment that brings out a creative voice that many students don't think they have. I think that it's real. I think that it's real. And what I mean by that is, what I think my students find to be one of the most favorite aspects of my classes is that it's real in the classroom, and it's real in terms of applying to the world outside the classroom. I'm always thinking, how will these theories, how will this subject matter make you a better person, make you a better parent, make you a better worker, make you a better citizen? And we talk about those things. If we are talking about very difficult, as we do quite often in my classes, social issues, then I make sure that we're also talking about solutions and inspiration, so that people leave not overwhelmed or numbed, but inspired. Some of the biggest challenges I face now are not even the willful distractedness, but the unwillful. In other words, when students are drawn to check their cell phones, when they are clearly using their laptop, even if they're sitting in the back row of my classroom, to do something that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It distracts others, but it distracts me. It pulls me off, because I really am talking to people. I don't care how large the class is. I'm talking to people, individual people. I'm not running PowerPoints. I do overheads, but just brief outlines. I can post things on e-comments. It's very much about the experience in the room. So the challenge to me and the challenge to them is to stay focused on a person speaking. And most people rise to the occasion, and they want it, and they're hungry for it, and they desire it. And so, because it's becoming more and more rare. The challenge is, for many of the students, is overcoming the addictive quality that they find themselves already being driven by in ways they can't control. So they'll pull out the cell phone without even meaning to, without even wanting to. And I acknowledge that. I teach about that addiction. I don't use the word loosely. I teach about that addiction so that they can look at the addictive behavior and try to counter it. I get to think for a living. That's the most satisfying part of being a teacher. I love thinking. I love reading. I love writing. I love learning. I get paid to do that. I love making people read good books, or at least trying to, signing them. I love getting to choose what people have to read, or at least are supposed to read. And I love responding to people's thought in the form of either their speech or their writing. I love, what I love about teaching is setting people's hearts and minds both into a context where they can trust themselves, trust learning, and love learning, and know that that will never end, ever end, really. Never has to.